that as well. We don't just take Levin's word for it. Then we have some of these other clips. We'll just play the clips and then come back and comment on them.
And to those American citizens thinking about helping al-Qaeda, please know what will come your way. Death, detention, prosecution. And when they say, I want my lawyer, you tell them, shut up.
Your time is expired.
Get a lawyer. You're an enemy combatant, and we're going to talk to you about why you joined al-Qaeda.
But you read the legislation, it's for the American people, and they admit it is. So it's this idea of al-Qaeda. So you should be arrested, Lindsey Graham. You've supported the Libyan attack, and they've now put real al-Qaeda in charge there. And I could pull up London Telegraph headlines and others. Al-Qaeda flag now flies over Tripoli. I mean, our own government created al-Qaeda. That's on record. But you always invoke it. Give up your rights or al-Qaeda will get you. Let's go ahead and go to the next clip.
James Madison, the father of the Constitution, warned, the means of defense against foreign danger historically have become instruments of tyranny at home. Abraham Lincoln had similar thoughts, saying, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. My well-intentioned colleagues' admonitions in defending provisions of this defense bill, yes, their legislation would arm the military with the authority to detain indefinitely, without due process or trial, people suspected of an association with terrorism. These would include American citizens apprehended on American soil. I want to repeat that. We are talking about people who are merely suspected of terrorism or suspected of committing a crime and have been judged by no court. We are talking about American citizens that could be taken from the United States and sent to a camp at Guantanamo Bay and held indefinite detention. A suspect. We're not talking about someone who has been tried and found guilty. We're talking about someone suspected of activities. But some of the things that make you suspicious of terrorism are having food, having more than 7 days of food, missing fingers on your hand, having ammunition, having weatherproofed ammunition, having several guns at your house. Is that enough? Are you willing to sacrifice your freedom for liberty? I would argue that we should strike these detainee provisions from this bill because we are giving up our liberty. We are giving up the constitutional right to have due process before we're sent to a prison. This is very...
Isn't that a breath of fresh air? That's what the media says is radical. I tell you, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there. That's Rand Paul, who I know behind the scenes. I know people that work with him. He's the real deal. He's just like his dad. And they demonize the daylights out of him. They demonize his dad. They twist everything he said or done against him. When the entire corrupt system is attacking somebody, you know they're good. If you're sick of this system, if you're sick of all this corruption, support Ron Paul. Now, we've also got the clip of Lieberman, just incredibly creepy, where he's talking about, we don't want you to know what the torture is. We want you to be scared. I mean, that's terrorism right there. We don't want anybody to know you've been arrested, and we don't want anybody to know what our interrogation methods are because we want you to be scared.
When a member of al-Qaeda or a similar associated terrorist group is captured, I want that person to be terrified about what's going to happen to them in American custody. I want them not to know what's going to happen. I want that terror that they inflict on others to be felt by them as a result of the uncertainty of not knowing that they can look on the internet and find exactly what our interrogators are going to be limited to.
The law of the land is that if you choose to help al-Qaeda, you've committed an act of war against your fellow citizens, and you can be held as an enemy combatant for an indeterminate period of time so we can gather intelligence about what you may have done or about what you know about the enemy.
Can you think of anything more creepy than these corrupt senators that have helped the foreign banks gut this country and sent all our jobs overseas, who use this national security state to operate in secrecy, and now they want to start arresting us and dragging us off in the night, and no one knows where we went? Can you imagine the abuses that are going to come from this? I mean, it doesn't get any more textbook than this. And by the way, Rand Paul showed his intelligence earlier when he was mentioning the missing fingers, things like that. We've broken the news, been sent the manuals where they tell tattoo artists, gun shops, fertilizer places, you name it. If a farmer comes in and has burns on their hands, go ahead and call the police on them. Or if they tell work people, telephone repair people, you name it, that go in your house, realtors, that if they see guns, go ahead and call Homeland Security on you. I mean, what's next? If you see a ham sandwich in somebody's refrigerator, call the cops on them. It's this idea that the general public is bad and government is good, when government is now run and hijacked by these criminal interests. It is mind-blowing to see this happen. Last night, I watched the film Equilibrium with Christian Bale when I was jogging on the treadmill, and I woke up at in the middle of the night, freaked out by it, because this was only made like a decade ago, and the whole movie is telescreens on the wall saying watch your neighbors, and government trying to force drug the public, and black uniforms. And I'm like, this is exactly what the system's doing. It's like they've watched some cheesy B dystopic science fiction movie and said, this is a good plan, let's go with this. The only thing we've got left is the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, which the American people are still exercising openly, which is good. And between those two prongs, that pincer attack, if we boldly stand up and tell the truth with our First Amendment, we can avert using the Second Amendment. Now, here's the numbers. A record 1.5+ million instant FBI checks. And on average, they did a survey, the average person was buying 2.1 guns. Now, again, instant FBI checks are only from federal firearms dealers. It's estimated that around 30% more guns are sold from individuals to other hands. There's 400 million guns in this country. So you double 2.1 guns sold, you're talking about 3 million plus guns sold with 1.5 million background checks. 3 million guns sold in December alone, on top of the 400 million guns in this country of new manufacture. This is an armed camp, and I think that's beautiful, because nothing equalizes the good guy versus the bad guy like guns. You take Mexico. Great people, a lot of courage, total slaves. Because the military and the government has the guns and the citizens are totally barred from owning firearms. So only the criminals and the gangs and the government are armed. The answer here is arming more people as an equalizer. And I saw a national survey last week of why these gun sales were so high. And the average person said government collapse, civil unrest, and they went on to say, we don't trust the government. So what does that say to the system? The people are arming against the government, just as the founding fathers said we should do. People are finally figuring out what the liberty teeth are for, as George Washington called them. Now, I'm not calling for some violent confrontation. We need to reach out to the military and police, who, by the way, are good people on average and are waking up. But what message is that to the pushers of the NDAA and the rest of them? What message is that to you, that the people are doing this? This is not going to be like Germany or Russia or China, where people were not armed. This is not going to go well for you. And you may think you're going to be able to finagle some civil war and sit offshore while this happens and get away with it. When we get America back, globalists, you're going to be brought to justice. And if you make us go through some horrible civil war and some giant war crime operation where your people commit war crimes, you're going to be doubly brought to justice. Back off now. Abandon your eugenics program. Abandon your New World Order. Because you can look at the facts. You can listen to Brzezinski a year and a half ago in 2010 tell you at your own CFR you're going to lose. Your whole New World Order plan was based on us being in the dark. You're not going to be able to get away with this when we have your whole playbook. And we know what order the plays are going to be played in. Checkmate. You might be able to kill some of us individually, but you're not going to kill this idea of freedom. You're not going to get away with this. You're in check. If you continue to move in the direction you're going, you're checkmate. I don't want all of these horrible things to happen that are clearly going to unfold for anybody that can study geopolitical movements if this continues down this road. I'm not saying bring it on, let's have a big war. I'm way past tough guy point. I'm way past being macho and saying let's have a fight. There are alternatives to fighting. And I know a lot of you in the power structure are very concerned, and you've read the tea leaves. You realize you're not going to win this. Who would want to win it anyways? The nightmare world that the worst of you that run the elite system have determined for the rest of you is a foregone conclusion? Don't just let this happen. Don't let World War III with Iran happen. Don't let all this genocide happen. Don't let a domestic police state happen. Let's not go down this road. Let's not fight a war where we all lose. Let's de-escalate now. Let's de-escalate now. All right, let's continue here with really some comic relief. It's comical to those of us that are awake. You know, watching Obama say he's against a bill that he really wrote the subsection for, and then saying he'd veto it, but then signing it. I mean, once you're conscious of the liars, it's like, that's cartoonish. It's like watching the magician stage everything in slow motion. You can see the sleight of hand. But the system is targeting people that are unconscious. And so that's why all this stuff works. But Huntsman, who works for Obama, is a total establishment ringer, is a total New World Order minion. He's put out a new ad with Twilight Zone music in the background, making fun of Ron Paul, implying that he's a total kook. Because why? Ron Paul quotes George Herbert Walker Bush calling for a new world order, and quotes the fact that Skull and Bones in their own documents wants a new world order, as if you are idiots and don't know that they've announced a new world order in Europe run by the banks and a Goldman Sachs dictatorship. So we're going to go ahead and play the ad, and then I'm going to come back and decipher it here. They also show a clip of Ron Paul saying that Hamas was set up by Israel. Israel admits that, but the system is acting like he's a kook for admitting that the sky is blue or that grass is green. Here is the new desperate ad where they also use a clip from my film Endgame where Ron Paul talks about the New World Order. Here it is.
The assumption is that this guy is like your crazy uncle, but you never expected your crazy uncle to get this far. The problem with him is that he's got some very sound points, but then he's kind of, I don't know, in other areas scary.
All I can say is,
back it up to when Ron Paul comes. Again, this is just too much. I've got to analyze each piece of this. You've got some teleprompter reader on Fox News who sits up there and dictates to you, this is your crazy uncle. Yeah, that predicted everything that's happening 30 years ago. And then you're going to be peer pressure driven. This is what they think of you. And because he says this is your crazy uncle, who they told you for 6 months couldn't win, now the front runner, so they're panicking. They're trying to dictate your reality. Then they cut to Ron Paul on a TV show when he's asked about Skull and Bones. ABC News got footage 10 years ago, pull it up, of Skull and Bones where they were worshiping Satan. Look, I know that's crazy, but it's not Ron Paul that did it. He was just asked about it, and he said, yeah, they're doing it. Then they cut to him talking about CFR Trilateral Commission. The CFR every week puts out articles on their website calling for global government. And they've got almost every member of Congress as a member. And it's a British intelligence outfit set up by British intelligence to help take this country back over in 1922 at Pratt House in New York.